new series of technology, tools, and programming languages. Step-by-step instructions for any beginner for a specific tool or programming language that would give you a good crash course. Where to begin, how to quickly adapt with a strong foundation. We will cover the most popular and difficult aspects of many tools and languages as we go. Today, we will cover Rust programming language. This session is with a Malaysian programmer where I am the mentor and clearing the doubts. Since the content is too long, hence I have divided it in parts, else the video would have been too long. So, let's get started.
I hope you're clear with the concept so far.
Can you expand a bit on borrowing? Borrowing a bit blur.
Okay. Okay, I'll cover borrowing first. And anything else?
No, just borrowing.
Okay. And also for the homework, I saw what you wrote for synchronized and non-synchronized. Can we discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you feel that it's not correct, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's partially correct. I'm not saying it's wrong or something, but the understanding, the main concept of synchronized, I'll just explain and then let me know if you understand it or if you have any problem with that.
Yeah,
See, any programming language doesn't matter, but synchronized concept, even for how window operates in the backend, the concept of synchronized remains same. And the
same.
concept behind it is that there is a particular piece of instructions or a series of instructions which happen at a single time in a particular time that is synchronized, and something, the execution of something which can happen at maybe at a particular time and then some time later, or can vary, it won't happen at a fixed time, then that is not synchronized. And
Okay.
that is the only meaning of synchronized and non-synchronized, whether it's data types, whether it's memory, whether it's threads, whatever it is. So how
Oh,
window operates is also the same when it's multitasking or multi-threading. Synchronized and non-synchronized will remain same. So if we are saying that it's multitasking, which means that multiple windows are open, which means it's doing parallelly, will happen at the same time. And when all of them will execute, only then the new thread can open. And same happens with the data type. Once the data type execution or steps are over, only then the next step will come. That is synchronized. So the concept of synchronized will remain same, be it whatever,
okay.
right?
So
And that goes for Rust also.
yeah, so it means that synchronized means a program will run in a predictable manner, right? One step before another.
Yes, it's kind of a concept. If you can go and Google about that also, it's kind of a memory lock, which means that if I have four line of code that will execute at one time, and before that there will be no memory allocation to any other resource, that will execute first, and then the next step will happen. So something which happens at a go, at once, no memory leakage, no memory usage, and then the next thing will happen. That is synchronized. The state of synchronized is that.
We understand.
This is because this concept is very important. Maybe you can just put again, like because we have a gap of 2 days now, Saturday and Sunday. Just research even a little bit more. Google about memory lock. Google about synchronized data types. Google about how synchronized function behaves. Even how window behaves in a synchronized manner, or multitasking or multi-threading. Even research about these concepts. So because
Yeah.
if your concepts are clear, it will reflect somehow in your code as well. Right?
Okay.
And then we'll discuss this sorry, borrowing. So let me know what is your understanding, and then I'll explain from there.
Borrowing is like if the primitive variable, right, it will the scope of the variable will be ended in the function, right? But if it's a reference, then it will uh you get it inside the main function as well, something like that.
Okay, I'll
But
explain
but
it.
but the problem is I do know what what you taught me that they are related to borrowing. So I don't understand the word borrowing in Rust.
Okay, it's okay. It's always good to go back on the concepts if you have any confusion, or just repeat it again,
Yeah.
because when you code you can't go back to the concepts and understand the concepts. When you're coding you should be clear with the concepts at least.
Okay.
Checking the syntax while coding is fine, but then checking the concepts is not good. So while you're learning the what do you say, the language or anything new, if you're learning, make sure the concepts are very clear and then you start executing.
Okay. Yeah. Can.
Which means you can start writing code. It's not that you can't write code, because if you don't write code, you won't learn it. But then, yes, your concept should be very clear. So
Yeah.
borrowing is basically something in divided in two parts, as the other things are also pass by value and pass by reference. So when we say pass by value borrowing, which means I will define a vector, give it a value, and then pass it to a function. So only that value will be passed. So we can it's not a reference, so it's not referring to any memory location. It's only that particular value that we are referring to, and that is the ownership of that vector or that value has been transferred temporarily. That is the basic concept of borrowing, transferring the ownership temporarily to some other function. Can you repeat what I said so that it's more clear to you and I can see that you understood it?
You mentioned the word transfer, meaning for the primitive variable and reference variable, right? Primitive variable is like the the power is handled in the function, internal function, and then reference is like the power is borrowed in the main function, something like that. Is it?
No, no. Let me repeat that again.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk only by pass by value
Pass
and
by
borrowing.
value. Okay.
And borrowing. Okay, only
Okay.
these two things. So borrowing is transferring the ownership of a data type
Okay.
to some other function
Okay.
temporarily. Okay.
Okay.
When you're transferring something to someone else, like see from the word, if you can relate to the word borrow. When you borrow something from someone, it's temporarily, right?
Okay.
Not permanent. So
Okay.
when you borrow something, you give one item or any product to someone for a particular use, and then you take it back. A real time scenario, your neighbor comes and he does not have a scissor and he asks you for a scissor. He'll borrow that scissor from you and then he'll return it back to you.
Mm.
Right? That's the basic concept of borrowing. So similarly, Rust has borrowing, where Rust will transfer that value to some other function temporarily.
Okay. How
Okay,
about pass
now
by reference? Yeah.
yeah, we'll talk about that. First, tell me now, do you understand what is borrowing
Okay.
only by value?
Okay. I just actually closed my eye while listening to you. Okay. You mentioned that like scissors, right? So you borrow something from other and then you give back once you
Yeah.
use it. Yes, there's a definition of borrow. And for these cases, pass by value, right? It's like the val the value is borrowed from the main function to the child function, and then after that it return it back to the main function.
Yes.
Is it?
Now
Yeah, yeah,
you got it. Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
How about pass
I
by
think I should
reference?
give you more real time examples, and then you'll understand better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So now let's talk by pass by reference.
Okay,
So pass by reference is no difference for borrowing. Like in
okay,
case of borrowing, it's not that pass by reference is doing something different. It's normally how pass by reference works. And normally how pass by reference works is that whenever you talk about pass by reference, it is actually not about what value is defined. It is about a memory location, which
okay.
means that do you use Google Map?
Uh, yes.
Okay. So when you start a Google Map and you enter a location on the Google Map, right? So while you are referring to the path that Google Map defines, there is a endpoint that Google always keeps referring to, that this is the endpoint where you have to reach, or your destination, your final destination, right? So
Mm.
pass by reference is a kind of concept like this, that reference, that variable will always be pointing to that final destination, which is in this case a memory location. So reference point is your starting location in a sense, and the end destination is your memory point where the actual data is stored. So the destination is your memory storage location. That is passed by reference.
So you mean pass by reference actually does not use the concept of borrowing, is it, as you say?
No, no, it does use, but right now I'm saying that borrowing, in case of borrowing, pass by reference is not different. Pass by reference is also same for the functions. It is also same for the data type. So wherever you use pass by reference, it's the same. So similarly, it's the same in borrowing also. Pass by reference is not dependent on borrowing. It's a separate concept. It's
Okay,
just
okay.
that we are also using it in borrowing.
So
But
it's a
first,
separate.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
So first, tell me, are you clear with pass by reference concept itself? Leave borrowing aside, but are you clear with
Yeah,
pass
yeah,
by
yeah.
reference?
I very clear. I very clear on pass by reference without borrow.
Explain it to me in your own words. You don't need to use any typical language or something. Just very general, basic terms. What do you understand
Okay,
by
in
that?
the main function, you are let's say variable x, right? You are refer it to another variable, right? So when you pass by reference in a function, right? If you, let's say, you reset the reference value again, without return back the variable in the main function, after calling the internal function, you still able to point to the same thing, and you can get it in the main function. This is the what I
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So the same thing is the memory location where the data type is stored. Similarly, it happens in borrowing. So here, when borrowing comes in picture, we are saying that we are passing reference and transferring the ownership on a temporary basis. But now the transfer is of the memory location. Are you able to relate both the concepts together now?
The last sentence, can you repeat again?
So I mean that in
Uh,
case of borrowing, we
okay.
are transferring the ownership temporarily, but the transfer is of the memory location that we are pointing to or we are referring to.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I get it.
Is it clear now? Or I can explain it even more. It's okay.
Am I is okay?
Any other confusion or any other part that you didn't understand? We can cover it again.
It's okay.
All right. So should we move it for today's session? We are fine.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's fine.
We have some more data types in Rust, which are very important also, and can be used when you are, basically, first of all, either trying to create data structures or collective data, basically, or a collection, basically. The first such data type is enum. Enum is normally used when we have a list of possible variants, which means we have two, three categories to define, like we had in struct in the last session, if you remember. It is something similar to that. But the usage of this is little different because we will be using it in a binary form, which I'll cover in today's session later. But for now, just understand that we have a data type that is enum, and the keyword for this is enum. You define a name and then the variance, as you see on my screen. Can you see this?
Yeah, yeah.
So this variant 1, variant 2, variant 3 means it is a variation of similar category, which means that, for example, like we've covered in this code, that we are talking about the gender. So variation in gender could be male and female. So these are kind of variations we are talking about. Or if you have seen any product listing where there are 5, 6 colors for a product, so the variation on that will be on basis of the color. So one is red, one is green, one is blue. That will be the variation. So we use enum when we are actually using the variations of any particular category. So it could be size, it could be color, it could be gender, and so many other things like that.
A question. Can enumeration enum, right? Can in a variable, in one enum you can have integer, you can have boolean, or you need to stick to same variable in one enum.
Okay, so think about this in a way. If you have a category variation of colors, will you have integer and string both together?
No, no.
So does that answer your question yourself?
Okay, okay, understand. Meaning
Right?
impossible. Yeah.
Exactly, it's impossible because when we are creating variations, obviously the data type has to be same. It can't be different. If I'm taking a variation of sizes, like say shoe size, if it will be integer always, it can't be string, right?
Yeah, makes
So
sense.
that's right. So this is what enum is. You see the output and see how it is defined. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll move forward.
Uh, I don't understand the word derive. Derive debug.
Actually, I think so. I won't confuse you telling this right now. Let's take this up later in the sessions because it will confuse you. Just consider this enum definition here and the main. That's it. Just for now, just focus on this. This is actually enum is basically when you compile it, it gives you an error. So for that we are using it. But why we are using it, I'll tell you later. Is it fine?
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Because it will confuse you otherwise. Concept is modules. This is very important. And also now whatever in the session I'm covering, I won't be able to show you the code running or something like that because I don't have cargo tool installed on my setup. I'm not using an ID and I am not setting it up on command prompt also because I'm working on multiple languages and only something that can be executed online I'm doing that, but you can do that. So do it on your ID, whatever steps I'm explaining it to you. Make sure you
Okay,
run all those steps, make sure the cargo tool is working, and make sure you create a few examples and see how it's working, and let me know if you have any confusion on that. But right now I'll just tell you theoretically. Is that fine?
yeah, it's fine.
Because I don't have the setup for it. Okay, so for modules, why did we first of all need modules? In Rust, there is a very good programming way, which is programming it in an executable of binary. And for executing binary, we use the cargo tool, right? So any module that we create is a group or a logical group of code. We will
Okay,
convert it into binary crate, which will be executable from main only, but then we will use cargo tool to run it or to compile because it's a compiler running together. I hope you know because in the first or second session you told me that you're using cargo.
okay.
You know the usage of cargo, right?
Yeah, I think okay, cargo is like Maven, something like you can build in Rust. Modules is like module seems like a function, but it's not function, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a function. Basically, it's a logical group of code. Obviously, the term is similar to functions, but the functions is like you can use it anywhere in the program, just creating a normal program. For here, it is specifically when you have to execute it in a binary form. So we have to convert it. I'll tell you all the steps right now. I won't run it and show you, but I'll just tell you theoretically how it works. So we have to convert it into binary, and that binary we call it crate, but it's more or less just binary. It will be a binary, and that binary will be executed by the cargo tool, and that's why we use cargo tool. Now, cargo tool will compile and run it both together.
So you say module is like executed in a binary, is it? Module.
Yeah, something like that. Not
Yeah.
exactly, but yes, something like that. As
Okay.
we study more about it, will be more clear. But for now, you can keep this understanding that yes, for binary, we need modules.
Understand. Okay.
Uh, and when we compile the module, the term that we use is crate, and this crate will be converted into a binary, and that crate will be used by the cargo tool.
Okay.
This is the syntax. Just read through it and let me know if it's not clear. Otherwise, it's just a predefined syntax and we have to follow it. One is a public module that we create. Another is a private
Yeah,
module.
I think module is something like it can group a lot of code in a cleaner way. So I think so.
Yeah, exactly. You can say a block of code or on a piece of code which is a separate execution. This is basically, used more when you need to write games or a separate, what do you say, a piece that has to run on its own independently, which is not a web programming, which is not a mobile app, but a separate piece of code execution like a game. Then this is required more. Or maybe you're building a payment gateway system, something like that. For that programming, it is used, which is a separate entity in itself. Like if you see so many e-commerce websites, we just integrate it with the API, and there are so many payment gateways we have. We can have multiple gateways on one e-commerce website, and it's still separate entity. Payment gateway is not like a part of the what do you say, the website, but then also it's your choice. You can which payment gateway you want to integrate, which you don't want to. So it's a separate executable piece. That is where this module or this binary crate comes into picture, or you, or maybe you're creating a game also in that.
Okay.
So the syntax is clear, right?
Not hard. Not very hard.
Yeah. Okay. These are a few terms. Crate we've already discussed, cargo we've already discussed, module we've already discussed. This is the Rust package registry, which I'm sure you have it on your ID, so I won't cover that. The first three, see if you are clear with all of this. Just
Yeah.
have a
Okay.
look and let me know. Here,
Yeah.
we
No.
can move forward.
Yeah. Move forward.
Okay. A module can be public or private. I'm sure you might be knowing what is the difference between a public or a private module, but still, just to make it clear, can you tell me what is your understanding on public and private?
Private is only can accessible in the same file. Public is can be accessible anywhere.
Yeah, so public module can be accessed from other modules as well, other classes as well, other programs as well. But private is only within that same uh, class or function or main, only within that area. Then we have a concept of nested modules, which means within one module we can define multiple modules. Like you can see over here, again I can't run this code and show it to you, but if you can just have a look at the code and let me know if you have any confusion. So clear with nested modules, so I can proceed.
Yeah, you can proceed.
All right, great. This is a little example, small piece of code for public module. Do one thing, because you have cargo installed on your ID, just create a separate what do you say, package for modules, and then over there practice this, write this code and see if it's running properly. Just make few changes here and there, see what error it's giving,
Okay.
change in the modules and see how it's working, right? Make sure to
Okay.
do it on your ID, okay? Today or tomorrow, whenever you have time.
Okay.
Then next thing, now this is all very theoretical, but make sure you try to do it on your what do you say, ID. You can do it on command prompt also if you feel that's fine. So just create a library, a small piece of project for this, to this, a whole library we are going to create out of this for executing in the cargo. And these are the steps that we need to follow. Okay, for example, they've given movie app. You can create something else if you want. Basically, we are trying to create a library, and they have taken an example of movie because we all can understand that concept, that we can create a library for movies. So these are the steps we need to follow. This is the exact step you will follow over there on the command prompt. And if you have it on the ID, you can do it in that way. you want, I can take an example of an ID in the next session. If you want me to do that, or if it's you can do it on your own, then it's fine.
I can do it on my own.
Okay. So make sure you create an app or library, and in that source, just name that library.rs and the movie library as .rs, right? Because this will be the main folder library, and this will be the subfolder, right? Any
Yeah,
questions out there? Very simple, I think so.
not hard this one.
Yeah, this is actually in the ID, it's even more simple. It's just creating any other folder, it's like that only. And then within this file, this cargo file or the project that we have created, create a package with the name of the library, the version, and name yourself as the author. Then define this file as public so that you can access it from anywhere.
Okay.
Right? Any questions? Just follow this PPT and create this library on your ID, and then probably we can discuss it on Monday if you can show it to me on your screen, and I'll just have a look. Right?
Okay.
So this is step 2. This is step 3. Just follow it step by step. This is step 4, where you can add a simple print command and see if it's playing. So it's basically we are picking one movie from the library and playing it, something like that.
Okay.
You see them?
Yeah.
Okay. Then this will be step 5, where we will build the library crate, which means we will convert it into a binary form so that we can run it through cargo. And for that, the command is cargo build. And whatever the command is on the ID, you can use that. It will compile this movie library and create a crate for us, which we can run in the cargo. And it will show some message like finish dev or something like that. Is it fine?
Yeah, it's fine.
This will be your major homework today. All these
Yeah, you
steps that I'm covering in the session, you have to create and execute it on your ID today or
yeah
tomorrow,
can.
like when.
Yeah, you update the document. I'll do.
Yeah, I'll add it there, and I think so that one homework will be sufficient because it will it's going to take a little time because you right now there's no code inside. You have to put some code also. I'll write that what code you need to write. Okay? These are the steps first of all to just to create the library.
Actually,
That step,
module is like in Java it's like packages, right? So,
yeah, it's exactly in Java. It's like package, so it's kind of creating a package of your own, defining a library of your own,
okay.
and then you can create a test application over here, add it to the cargo file like this, and this is the broad overview or broad level structure of that. This is the movie library, and this is the movie test that we are creating. So this will be the main library, and this will be the binary. Is the structure clear?
Yeah,
Just a
it's clear.
diagram representation of how it should be. So this one package movie library should have one library RS, RS, and the cargo file. The test should have main RS and the cargo file. Make sure when you create the package, check all the files are in a similar structure because this will be important when you create a bigger library that will be required if you have to code something as an independent entity, then these file structure will be very important.
Okay.
Okay, is it clear?
Yeah, clear.
I think so. Do it and then maybe it will be even better.
Okay.
And this is step 8 where we're going to add this into main so that we can run it inside the main like a test. So this will be the code just to check
Uh,
whether it's
what is external mean? Uh,
okay. This
what is external? I see the first word extern. This one.
okay. This is just a keyword where you are actually using this library that we created.
Okay.
So in this function, main doesn't know that we have a library like MovieLib or something. So it's we are defining that this is the library and we will use this library. So these two line will always be there when we are using an existing library that we created, a user defined library. Basically a keyword only, like we have use or we have main. It's the extern is also a keyword, right? So basically it will, what this first line will do, it will import that library for us, and then this will, when we say use, we can use that library. Okay, and then the final step will be use cargo build to build and run. That cargo will do it on its own. It will build and the run the code both. Right? Yeah, by external it means something which is not inbuilt in Rust. We have created it, right? So it's basically external. That's why it is external. And that is why I think so they have kept a keyword as external.
Oh, use is import, right? Same like import use.
Yeah, use is same like we use for other packages. If we'll come to that, I think so library part in Monday session where we will use IO and exception handling, that will be covered in Monday. So how we use those packages, there also we use the same keyword use for using the inbuilt packages.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions about? Then we come to collections. We were talking about vector that day, you remember, for borrowing. So we have other data types or collections. One is vector, one is hash map, and one is hash set. For
Okay.
now, I'll just discuss vector, hash map, and hash set. You can maybe do it yourself, or I'll cover it in the next session. So
Oh,
basically, vector we have already done, but the main concept of vector is it is a resizable array. So
yeah.
the memory allocation is done at runtime, and we can keep adding it as per the requirement. So it can even shrink at the runtime, or it can even be expanded at the runtime, because we can add as many data types or as many what do you say content to it while writing the code at runtime. We
Okay.
don't need to have to define it earlier that this is the size or this is what it will hold. And this is how we create a vector, like we have already done, but now I am creating it using the keyword new. One way is to do it like this. Other way, when we are defining the value, is to do it like this.
Both also can, right?
Or
Both also can.
I didn't understand that.
No, the first code and the second code can be is doable, right? First one haven't initialized the variable name, variable value. Second one, yeah.
Yeah, second one is giving it a value. First one is
Okay,
not giving it a value, so we can add value at runtime or maybe in a function or something like that.
okay, understand.
These are few methods or functions the vector has as library. This is new. This is push. Push is used to add elements to the collection or add elements to the vector. Then we can also remove by using the index. So we can tell in on a particular index we can remove the element that we've added, and this is to check whether it contains a value or not. Len is to check the size of the vector at runtime,
Okay,
or maybe then you can run a for loop or a while loop to see, fill the length of the vector and then see what is the elements, read the elements, add the elements, or remove the elements. This is an example of vector adding the values. You see, we are adding the values here one by one.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We described instance is created using the new keyword. Then we added the value. Then we check the length of the vector, and here we printed the vector whole together.
Okay,
Right? Is it clear?
yeah, understand.
Okay. Then we can also create the vector as a macro. For borrowing, you remember we used a macro.
Yeah, 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 understand.
So macro we used only for pass by value. For pass by reference, we don't use a value. We don't use a macro. And can you tell me why we do that?
Macro is in compile time, validation in compile time.
Exactly. Yes, right. So any value that we are not defining, then we can't use it as a macro. So pass by references at runtime, so we can't use it as a macro. So that's it. Okay. So this is how we define it in macro. I hope you know that already. This is one method push that I've already just showed you. And this is accessing a value from a vector. So it's very simple. Any questions on this? It's very
No.
simple, just adding value and that's it. Okay. I think so I've covered everything very quickly because I didn't show any code over here, right? For the library, so that's why it's completed fast. We don't have exceptions as such, it's only error handling, and one returns an enum, and in other case it just ends abruptly, so it's irrecoverable. So these are the only two situations for error handling, because they don't have exception handling as such, so it's error handling. And for that we have only two,
Okay.
right? One is
So
we can't,
we don't have exception, but we have error, right? As you mentioned.
yeah. So in error it will return an enum always.
Enum. Okay.
Enum data type that we discussed in the last
Yeah.
session, if you
Yeah. Enumeration. Yeah.
right, right. So, so let's discuss it with this code. Basically, in this code, if you see, we are actually trying to open one file that is main.jpg, and
Mm.
for a file to open, it should exist in that path. So when I say in that path means by default, because here we've only taken the name of the file, we have to specifically mention where the location of that file is in the directory of your system or probably in the program. So there are two, three ways of doing that. We will discuss it in length when we come to the IO package. I'll talk about that later. But for now, it's like a default location for this file and it does not exist there. As you see in the commit, for now we are assuming that this file is not existing. That's why we are actually trying to handle the situation whether if the file is present, we will take one scenario. If the file is not present, it will throw an error and end abruptly. So if we handle it, won't end abruptly, it will just show that error to us. See this file not found? This is the
Oh yeah.
message from this.
Yeah. I know.
So what we have done, we have used a match where we check if this is okay, then print file found. If not found, it will throw an error and it will throw an error like this, right? But
Yeah.
we have handled it, otherwise it will end abruptly.
Yeah, but the no such file or directory, I don't see the string inside the code. It's a default error. It's a default error, right? Okay. In the result section, right? There's a string called no such file or directory. But
Yeah.
in the program there, I don't see the string.
No, so see, these are certain exceptions or errors which by default a program will throw. So if
Okay.
even
Okay.
if like see if even if I don't handle the situation, by default when I run this program, I will get this error only. I will get the
Okay.
same error. But why are we handling it so that it doesn't, the program doesn't end abruptly? Because you
Mm,
see this last line, end of main, this one.
mm. Okay. Okay.
This
Understand.
line will never get executed if it ends abruptly, which means that if you want your program to execute in a proper manner in spite of any error that has occurred, that's why you handle errors or exceptions. The major thing is that any code after this, so what will happen if I don't handle this? Here the line will throw an error and program will end right here and it will throw the same error, no file or directory, right?
Okay.
It won't come here. This line will never get executed. So it is basically that when you're writing a program, you want the whole program to execute, handle the errors so that it will show the errors also, and the rest of the part of the program will also get executed. You get the point?
Yeah, I get the point. Okay.
Let's do one thing. Let me just I'll just comment all this and then see what happens. We are using this file. Okay, I have commented everything except one println for the file and one println for the main. And let's see what happens when I execute.
Okay.
See, the error is still the same. You see that?
Uh, yeah, I saw it. Yeah, there's an error thrown.
Yes. So after this, any code that I write after end of main will not get executed. It will end abruptly. So avoid that situation, we do all this programming.
Yeah, but the end of main still print line, right? So the exception is like in Java, right? If you have exception, you quit the program, but here it's not quitting.
Yeah, it's not quitting the program. Okay, we'll take one more scenario.
Okay.
Let's take this scenario. Okay, this is an integer where we have a method is main, right? And we are handling the situation, and let's see how it will behave when we handle it and when we don't handle it. So this is one result that we've taken, and the method is even. So we are trying to find out whether this number is even or not.
Mm.
And now, in a normal scenario, do you think it's an error to find out or not find out? Like normally, it won't be an error, right? So you see in this case that what we did is we created one function is even and passed the integer value. Now this function is actually checking whether it is an even number or not. It's a user defined method. It's like not a predefined method, right? And when we when we match the result, we see that it is not an even. So this line will get printed, line number 7. And
Oh.
in case it is an even, it will throw an error message. And then it will print this.
But in line 20, right, you need to return error, right? So in order they go, so line 20, the error is important.
Yeah, so line, this one you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so what do you mean? Can you repeat the question again?
Let's say I don't return error, then line 10 won't be executed, right? It must be error, right?
It will be executed because we've handled the situation. I don't think so. In this case, what will happen? It will execute all the code because we have already handled it. I don't think you want me to comment this and then see what happens.
Yes.
What
Let's
you're
see.
saying, right? If I don't do this, then what will happen? See, it's
Oh,
abruptly ending,
okay,
right?
I understand. Okay, this means that you need to return the object if let's say no error.
Right.
Uh,
Right, right. What simply using the file in the previous case and printing. That's why it didn't end abruptly. In this case, we are actually when the error is coming, you have to return the enum, and we commented that particular line, and that's why it's ending abruptly. So this is the two difference of one situation where we are handling. One we are not handling, but we are also not returning the enum, and the third situation in this case where we have handled it, but then we are not returning an enemy. Right? All three are clear to you?
yeah, clear.
You want me to do more changes here and see how it will behave, or
Uh,
you try it
no
at
need,
your
no
end?
need. I try. I think I understand. No need to do.
All right. We have a few more library which has certain methods to handle the exception situation or to use it when we are returning the enum. So one is unwrap, one is expect. Unwrap is like you want to raise a panic. A panic is like a macro which we can use at compile time. You know that, right?
Uh, can you repeat again? I don't understand.
Okay. So when we are returning an enum, what we do is we create two scenarios. One is like we create a panic macro for handling error, and we return that.
Okay.
It will actually raise a panic situation and then return the enum. So
Okay.
in case if we use unwrap, which will be a self handling situation, and nothing will be returned, only a panic situation will be returned that there is some error in the program. So we know that there is a situation of error in the program. That is one scenario. you might use it in some scenario where you don't want to return, like in a situation where you want to return none, then you can use it. And when you want to expect some return or some custom message, then you can use this method, the second one, the accept message or the accept method. Between the two, one where we
Uh,
don't want to return anything, and second when we want to return a customized message.
yeah, I need to see the sample code. Then only know.
For accept, so first we learn, let's learn. In this very first line, we have called this function is even, which we were using earlier also, and just called the method unwrap over here. Then printed the result and then end main. Okay, first let's execute it like this only and then see what happens and then we do it. Okay, so now result is true is a customized message, right? But we are not returning anything, just a message over here.
Can you remove the unwrap and see how?
This is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Correct.
Giving an error because actually this okay, let's do one thing. These are two programs, one we are using wrap and one we are not using wrap.
Oh,
Right? Almost the same code, and now make out what is the difference. See very carefully and tell me what is the difference where we are using wrap, where we are using unwrap, and one we are not using. This whole thing is where we are using wrap. I have to do it again. Sorry. Question is where we are not using unwrap, and then that second make out the difference, and then you know the code and see what's the difference between the two.
I checked from internet. Is unwrap is like panic macro. Is it?
Sorry, where is the panic macro? No, I didn't get you. What are you saying?
Can you go back to the document? The just now your
Yeah, okay, right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Unwrap function. Okay, unwrap here is like let's say success. You return the result, right?
We have two methods. One is unwrap, one is expect. So
Okay.
unwrap is a default error message whenever there will be a situation of error. Right?
Okay.
It will always give you a default error message, which is like we haven't defined it.
Okay.
Right?
Understand. So unwrap will give you the default error. No, if without unwrap is given you customized error, something like that.
Yeah. So the other method that is expect, which is this one, where we can define what error message to print,
Okay.
and that
Okay.
is the only difference between the two. So like where we when we use expect, we will say that file not able to open, which we are defining on our own. It is not a like not a default message. In this case, this is a default message. If I don't use unwrap, right, it will give an error because we are not handling it. Now we are handling it, and it is a default message that will come. If you can go back and refer to it, if later you don't understand, just write two three programs. I'll give you some homework on this, where in a situation where one to write use unwrap, one to write expect, and if it's not clear, you can ask me in the next session. Right?
Okay.
Any
Good.
questions?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I understand. We can move on now.
I'm just writing a code for expect. So this is the user-defined message where uh, what error needs to be printed on the console, we are defining that. So
Mm,
this is it.
okay.
So let's move forward.
Okay.
Now we have two types of errors, as I told you. We haven't
Okay.
discussed this yet. So one is panic and one is unrecoverable error. Unrecoverable error is where it will end abruptly. It's an unreachable statement. For example, this one. In this, what we are doing, we are using a panic macro. So this line you see is a panic macro.
Mm,
So basically, we are creating or we are telling the compiler that there is a possibility of some error. So possibly this what do you say, end the code there itself.
mm,
So it won't execute anything after that,
okay.
right? Because and there is another example where it will terminate when it encounters the panic macro. One more. Now this is an we were discussing two things. One is the panic macro, and second one is an unrecoverable situation, right? So this is again we are just trying to see if an integer is even or odd. A very simple way to check whether there's error or not. Right? Let's execute and see what error it will give. And you see, this is a user-defined panic, and the first one was by default whatever the panic situation was. Although whenever the panic macro will be encountered, it will just abrupt there and end there. So if we want in any situation, we want the code to execute at a certain point abruptly or create a panic. We basically creating a situation where we are telling the code that now we don't want it to execute further. We will use this one. Did you
Okay.
understand that?
I think I understand.
Okay, so tell me what is your understanding where we will use a panic macro, where we will use the other methods that we that I explained to you, unwrap and expect.
Panic is like terminate immediately. Is it?
Yeah, yeah. So whenever panic macro is encountered, the it will abrupt there from the at that line. After that, nothing will execute. So
But
we are
use
actually telling the compiler that abrupt there. Yeah.
yeah, I think usually we need to cache it, right? Something like that. So this one
Yes, so
we
this is something that we are doing it purposely, where we want it could be a situation where a code could go in infinite loop, or there is a situation where we don't want it to execute further, so that there may be some problem. So we specifically are doing this in a code, and if we handle it, that is a different scenario. So for exception handling, there can be multiple scenarios. This is one of the scenario where we, as a programmer, want to abrupt the program or the code. So then we use panic macro. We don't use it usually in every case.
okay.
Okay. And when we want to handle the situation which where we think the error might occur, but we want the rest of the code to execute, there we handle it and then define messages. Uh, One case we will use unwrap where we want a default message that comes from the executor, or an expect method where we want our user defined message. So we want to define something that this is the error, then we will use that expect method.
Okay. And
Okay, so these are three different situations. We will use whatever we want in as per our requirement of the code. Is that clear?
yeah, I think so.
Okay. Even if it's not, maybe you can just go back and then when you write the code, then you can ask me further questions. Yeah?
Okay.
Still, is there anything that's not clear? You can ask me still.
Yeah, never mind. I need to digest. After that, I'll ask you.
Okay, fine. So that was all for exception handling. I'll just give you two, three programs to write so that
Yeah,
it's more clear. I know
yeah.
it might be sounding a little, how what is this, or a little bit difficult. But as you just write, exception handling is the easiest part of programming, I think so. Because we just need to handle the situation and that's it. Nothing much to
Okay,
do there.
okay,
It's very easy. It's the easiest concept, I guess. So don't worry about that. Just write two codes and you'll be fine.
mm, okay,
So the next data type we have, this is more in Rust only. We don't have it generally in other programming languages. Is a generic data type. So where we don't have to define what exact data type will be, and we can take any data type and fill any data in there.
okay.
Okay. And this is a small example. That is here we've taken vector. A very simple generic example. Right? We have taken a vector here and printed that vector. Simple. Okay. Now we want this to be in a structure. So this generic can be in various forms. One is in a structure, one can be in the method, and one can be when we are passing it by reference.
Yeah, this one I
So
know. This one not hard. Java is same in all programming.
Never mind. Let's see how we use that. We will use it as data, right? And this is because a generic type of integers, like any numbers you basically, right? And we are not defining what exact type it holds. So we are not telling it what is it a vector, is it what exact data type. Here also you see generic type of string. So these two we have taken generic type of I32, which is we will always use data for it. So whenever you see in the code, it's written data instead of vector or any other data type, which means it's a generic data type and you can add any value to it.
Okay.
So I need to fix this error. I'll fix it and I'll update it in the PPT. I think so there is some error in this code. Or
Uh,
maybe we
I,
need some library to use data. I think
yeah,
so.
yeah. This one maybe it's a library problem,
Okay,
right?
no, the
No.
structure
I
is
think yeah, you need a struct. Uh,
yeah, we need a structure for this. Now it will do.
yeah. Okay.
We are actually defining a structure because in this case we are using the generic data type for the structure. So we have defined the struct first, a simple data and what to pass in it, right? And then we are using it in there. So that's why it was good. So probably if we use a generic data type and don't define it like that, it will give an error. Now there's another concept which is traits. So why we use traits as a standard behavior when we are using multiple structures. So in some case, if you remember in Java, we had interfaces, something called interfaces, where we were just defining the structure of something and not using it for defining exact thing, just a layout of the what do you say, a method or a package, just the outer layer of it. Do you remember the concept of interfaces in Java?
Yes, it's the same thing. Is it trace and interface? Yeah.
Yeah, so trait is similar like interface where we will only define what all one structure will have, what all methods, and what will be the return type. So only the function name, if you see this code, let me just write it there. Won't be executed because there's nothing to get executed here. But just write it here so it's more readable. This trait we are defining one method over here and the second method over here. So we have two methods, but what the method will do, the functionality of the method, we won't write any code over here. So this is just a layout, just similar to interfaces. Only a layout when we need to create. So why we need it at later stage when we need to reuse the code. Basically, whenever we are reusing a code, we will define the traits, just tell that these are the methods it will hold and give the implementation in some other class and just reuse it every time. Right? So it will be always empty method. We won't write any functionality over here. You see that? No functionality
Okay.
here and no functionality here. Maybe further it will be more clear why we use it. And this is how we implement
Yeah.
a
Implement is a
trait.
child class. It's a class that inherit the trait.
Yes, right. Exactly. So inherit, how to inherit, like we used in Java interfaces, is similar like how we implement the trait. So this is the implementation and this is like the syntax for it. Implement the name of the trait for which structure and then the implementation will come here.
Okay.
Right? So whatever code we need to write, we can write over here. Before that, we were just defining it and now we are giving the implementation. So this is the keyword we use IMPL for it.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
No.
Here? Can you tell me why this error is coming?
This one very easy because the struct does not allow function.
Struct does not allow function, but where are we using that? Can you
You are,
relate to the error and you see what's the error is in the console and then find out what is the error, why it is there.
uh, yeah. you calling a print, right? Print function is not in the struct, and then struct book should change to a class or something.
Yeah, because the struct is not defining any print method and is trying to use it.
And then struct is impossible to define print method, right?
What I'll do, I'll give this code to you for homework. You need to fix the error. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll give it to you for so one, fix it, one, handle it. Right, both the things you have to do.
okay.
It's very simple actually. It's only a definition of structure, and you just need to change it, and this error will go. Obviously, I can comment this even then if this error can go, but you have to fix the code, right? Okay, this will be one homework for exception handling.
Yeah.
Then similarly, generic as generic we had for structures, we have generic for functions. So for functions also we can define generic data types and use it through the function. So just explain it through a code. Otherwise, it's very simple, just like we did it for structures. It's again a situation. Now one and two code, both the codes you have to find out what is the error, handle it. Okay, this is a generic function. So why this error is coming again?
Yeah, the display is not. You need to have a struct, I think, or you need to import some import library.
This was the error. So for now I fixed it, but I'll just change this code in the PPT and give it to you as a homework. You need to handle the error and also give me two scenarios. That one, we are giving a user defined error messages, and one, the default error message. If I comment this, what will the error be? So there will be two situations, right? This is by default error message, right? And one error message you have to define on your own and then see what is the error and how
Okay.
you will handle it. Okay, these will be two scenarios for error. And the last two codes that we've discussed, one the generic function and one this one, both the situations, see how you can fix it and handle the situation, right?
Okay.
So this is all for today's session. You have any further questions?
Yeah, no question. We can end this.
Okay, you understand. And in the next session, I'll cover input output. That is very important topic. So I think so. I'll take the full session on that only.
Hope this session was helpful for any programmer who is willing to learn Rust as a beginner. Next, we will cover more on Rust, so stay tuned for more. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and keep coding.